So I started the firm out of my kitchen, and
Really?
it's grown really fast over the last 4.5, 5 years since I started it.
Sophie Alcorn, thank you for being on my show, 20 Minute Leaders. How are you?
Hi, Michael. I'm doing great. It's really awesome to be here. Thank you so
Thank
much.
Well, thank you for giving me your generous time, even in the late evening. I really appreciate it. Sophie, who are you? Where are you even calling from right now?
Uh, I am calling you from Mountain View, California. I live in Silicon Valley, San Francisco Bay Area, so very close to Stanford. And I am an immigration attorney. I'm a top 10 California immigration lawyer, certified specialist by the state bar, and my law firm, Alcorn Immigration Law, focuses on startup immigration. So it's great to be here.
Wonderful. Okay, so there's so much to talk about. Before we get to startup immigration, what is immigration law in its essence? And obviously, this is something that immigration ever since the past decade, I think, has been somewhat of a heated topic in this country. As I'm starting to learn, give me a little bit of context as to why this is such a complicated matter and what is immigration law.
I love that question. That's such a brilliant, I love starting with the philosophical. Immigration is people want to move. We're on this globe and the land doesn't come with walls, but we build them and then we want to get past them. And so immigration law is helping people navigate those walls and borders. And it's an especially interesting time to think about it, not just because of all the political things that are happening and COVID, but also augmented reality, virtual reality, future of work. Like, what is immigration going to be in the future?
So immigration, as the world is becoming more globalized, as a young entrepreneur, I'm imagining that there should be a pretty linear correlation. The more globalized the world is, the easier it will be for people to move between countries. Now, of course, I'm imagining you're specializing in the US, but is this the case, or is it, or because it doesn't seem so from the news that it's becoming easier as the world gets more globalized?
Well, certainly in the United States, it's becoming harder. And other countries over the last couple decades have also been on a path towards increased restrictionism and xenophobia, which might be a backlash to globalization. For people in the know, it may be easier than ever, but it's not obvious in every situation.
Right. So, what is the context of immigration law? Within the sphere of Silicon Valley, because is it the same
Oh,
as
I
just
love
regular
it.
immigration law or not?
No, it's different and it's wonderful. I think it's so fun. I love the brilliant minds that come here from all over the world, drawn by places like Stanford, Berkeley, Google, Apple. People are so excited to come here and start companies and meet venture capitalists. And so I'm thrilled because I get to talk to brilliant people every day who are working on such diverse pursuits and topics. So immigration law is different here than in the rest of the country, and I've practiced in different areas geographically. And in some of my prior legal incarnations, it was more about supporting undocumented people or victims of domestic violence or children who had been separated from their families, human trafficking. There's lots of really intense things that go on with respect to immigration that are, very important. And legally speaking, as a practitioner, it's very challenging because the law is stacked against people in these situations often, and it can definitely lead to burnout and compassion fatigue, which I experienced. And so I welcome the opportunity that I have now to work with really bright people, to learn from my clients as entrepreneurs who think about disruption and system change.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I can do some of that pro bono work right now, but I'm also looking at ways to create more systemic change and reform, and to bring what we can model here out to the rest of the country and potentially the world.
Sure. So take me back a little bit, because it doesn't seem like this is just something somebody stumbles onto and says, "Oh, okay, I'm going to be an immigration attorney, and I'm gonna found my own, my own firm, a very very successful firm in Silicon Valley, of all places." So give me your background. How do you even get sucked into this world?
So my dad was an immigration lawyer. My mom is an immigrant from Germany. She was his client. And so I grew up in an immigrant household with a dad who was in the 80s loving being like David versus Goliath, and doing all these crazy deportation battles and being in the courtroom. He was a former Marine, and he loved the adrenaline of that. And he had his own immigration law firm in Southern California. And so I grew up, we would have people over for dinner, and it was normal to have Ukrainian nuclear physicists and Vietnamese businessmen,
Sure.
and artists and singers. So my parents definitely cultivated that appreciation for just getting to know people from all over the world. And I worked for my dad, and from compassion fatigue, kind of burned out after a couple years. And that's the time in my life when I had my kids. And through my marriage, ended up back in Silicon Valley, where my ex and I had met at Stanford. And so we came back here for his job. And I was a stay-at-home mom for several years. Didn't have a professional network in the Bay Area, just maybe a handful of friends from college who I was still a little bit connected with. But it is a crazy story. Basically, my dad passed away unexpectedly. I had argued with him about I wanted to disinherit myself, not knowing that he was going to die.
Wow.
But then he did. And I didn't know was going to disinherit me, but he did. And then I got to the point of my prior marriage where it also wasn't going to work anymore. So I was a mom to a toddler and preschooler who didn't have a career and was trying to figure out a way to pay rent in Silicon Valley. And I really wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I thought about going to coding school.
Wow.
But it seemed like that would maybe not be the quickest way to get into the ecosystem.
Wow.
So I started the firm out of my kitchen, and
really,
it's grown really fast over the last 4.5, 5 years since I started it.
So you start the firm out of your kitchen. You say, I could go to a coding school. Maybe, all right, I'll start a law firm. Give me a little bit of taste as to what Alcorn Immigration Law is today. What is this group? How many cases do you see? It is one of the most well-known firms in the country for immigration law. But what is what's happening now with it?
Well, we've bootstrapped. We have about a team of 15 attorneys and paralegals. Wow. We have a distributed team across the country, which we've had for a while. So that was great to have in place pre-COVID. We kind of went digital. And we have helped thousands of international individuals from all over the world get visas and green cards to live and work legally in the States. We focus on entrepreneurs and investors, inventors, researchers, engineers, and from the law firm base, I've started a podcast, Immigration Law for Tech Startups. I'm a TechCrunch contributor with a weekly immigration advice column, Dear Sophie,
Wow.
and it's really fun.
Tell me
Things
a
are
little bit about
happening
this
really
column.
fast.
So the TechCrunch column, Dear Sophie,
Yeah.
how does it work?
So basically, people write in their immigration questions, and then every week I answer somebody's questions with an in-depth legal educational article about like the
Wow.
technical details of immigration law, and it's within the Extra Crunch brand that TechCrunch has.
What is the most complicated part of immigration law? So what are some things that, obviously the whole thing to somebody who's not a lawyer is like it's like a black box that I have no idea how anything over there works. But what are some of the deep complexity that you have to deal with on a daily basis to help people get access to this country?
Well, the stories are so moving. I mean, just within the last just like the last 24 hours, the people I've spoken with, like a startup founder who won a bunch of awards, got stuck in Canada, got denied her visa, and is now trying to figure out a way to come back in. And somebody really wants to hire her. Do they start a company in Canada just so she can work there for a
Wow.
year?
Really?
Yeah. And then another startup founder who's like trying to break away from his company, and he needs to lay the plan to do it without jeopardizing his current job. But his co-founder needs to be secure, but they're trying to get a contract and they don't want to violate their offer letter or or any like non-disclosure of confidential information stuff. So how do they start the company without working there and without violating that? And then,
Wow.
so that was just the morning. And then, somebody with a friend who's like trying to have the wife and kid live here, but they don't have a way to stay. Then somebody stuck in India working at a big tech company who the government is really scrutinizing whether she's extraordinary or not. Um,
Wow.
and then somebody else who just found out from a big company that their visas got denied. But this means that since their last status expired like 4 months ago, that they have to basically leave immediately. They don't know if their company
Wow.
is going to bring them back in, if the company cares enough. So how do they find a way to stay? That was just today. I didn't even like roll back for the last 24
Un
hours.
Wow, that's unbelievable. So, I mean, is this also the best part of the job, getting to hear everybody's stories and getting exposed
Mm.
to, because all of these are like big life decisions, right? Like, where am I going to be based and live? This is not just, you know, this is serious stuff.
It's really serious stuff. The best thing is winning. The best
Yeah,
thing is like taking the impossible situation and
yeah.
transforming it, and somebody getting their sense of freedom for the first time in
What
their
is the
life to be
success
able to do
ratio
it.
of something like this?
Well, take the H-1B visa, for example, which is a very common working visa for professionals. Under Obama and prior administrations, it was approved about 93% of the time, and maybe 5% of the time there was something called a request for evidence. Under the current administration, the last statistic I saw, the approval rate declined. It was at 93%. Now it was like hovering at 70%.
Really?
And the request for evidence had gone up from like 5% to like 30%. So it's gotten very intense. But we are still winning those. I cannot guarantee any future outcome ethically, but historically speaking, looking at past data, we have been winning H-1Bs like 97% of the time.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
And so is the engagement with the client, does it is the lifetime of it just that, that one act of getting that visa, or is this something that's ongoing and you need to have continuous support and engagement with them?
Yeah. Well, so we're focusing on the startup ecosystem. So we start with the founder, who's often an immigrant, get their immigration situation figured out, and then stick with them through the raises, the growth, and basically to bring on whole engineering teams, often in deep tech. And for any one individual, it's like a visa, a green card, and then citizenship. But they might have several different types of visas before they ever get a green card.
Right, and so a lot when there are different firms that are helping startups grow. A lot of the times they'll take, let's say, equity for and then do so and join the company's venture instead of a down payment. It doesn't sound like this is something that could be fitting perhaps to this model. Does it happen, or is this all engagement with the people? You're just knowledgeable about the company that they're starting.
Well, because you asked, I have not historically been able to do that, but I'm actually trying to recruit an MBA intern volunteer, ideally from a place like Stanford, who can help write the business plan for the immigrant-focused accelerator that I want to form, that we have VC interest for. And with that structure in place, we would then be able to do like immigration for equity sort of thing.
Wow. Okay, that's very, very cool. Give me a little bit of higher context as to where we're headed. And I mean, immigration, it's such a complicated concept on its own, but where is this whole ecosystem headed, and what needs to change for things to get better, if they do need to get better?
A lot of places in the world have realized, because they have not been as economically privileged as the United States has been in recent decades, that immigration is actually great for the economy, for creating jobs, and for increasing the quality of life of their citizens. So in the next 5-10 years, I think the US is at a critical point, and I want to help usher us forward into appreciating the value and contributions of immigrants. And I think that could be a real key to getting out of the economic situation that we currently find ourselves in. Because immigrants create jobs.
Right.
It's hard to be an immigrant.
Right. No, I mean, and so it sounds like it's mainly contentious in a place like the United States because of nationalism and some arguments about the economy. At the end, you're seeing it very from a humane perspective of, right?
Well, I mean, whatever your motivation is, like if you just want to talk about money, immigrants add money. Like if you want to talk about human rights, it's the right thing to do. If you want to talk about kindness and loving your neighbor, and that like if we help one person, it helps us all, like we can have it that way too. So it's a win-win.
So 5 years ago, starting out in your kitchen, now you're running a 15-person law firm that's recognized as one of the top for immigration law. What's next? Where are you headed?
Oh, so many things. I need to hop off this call in a couple minutes because I'm having my first diplomatic Zoom meeting with a minister of a country to talk about their innovation economy and supporting women and children through innovation.
Amazing.
So it's really exciting. The accelerator's on there. I founded a nonprofit called the Community for Global Innovation. We're looking for tech companies to take the pledge that they are open to hiring international graduates and won't hold that against them. The sky is the limit.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so I have to release you to go talk to the Minister of Innovation. But before that, I need 3 words that you would use to describe yourself. And why those 3 words?
Okay. Driven. I think you know why. Adventurous, because I love having new adventures and trying new things. And silly, because I'm actually really quite silly.
I love it, Sophie. Thank you so much for your time
Thank
and
you,
for the inspiration.
Michael.
And
It was a
best of luck.
pleasure.
Best of luck winning every case and helping every person fulfill their
Yeah,
personal
thank you
dream, whether
so
it's
much.
personal or professional. Thank you very much.
Really
Take care.
appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Bye
Bye.
bye.